Welcome everybody to our regular Tuesday meeting. We're glad to have everybody here. Welcome fellow Toastmasters, viewers at home, most importantly guests. Guests, would you like to once again introduce yourself and talk about what you're excited about?
I am Ava Boyd, and I'm again excited to see Wilburn's excellent conclusionary governmental speech this evening. Yeah. That's what brings me in. Can't keep me away.
We're groupies.
We're groupies? Yes.
Your name is Ava?
Ava.
Ava.
Yeah.
Ava, and your name is Groupie. John.
I'm not sure my mother would call me that.
Yeah.
Call me Todd.
Todd. All right, John and Ava, good to have you guys. Okay, Todd, sorry about that. Okay, let's get to it then. Reminder for everybody who is doing a roll. We need to get on top of this. Please, if you haven't already got somebody assigned who is going to fill out your competent leadership manual at the end of this meeting, please think of that person right now. Okay? Let's get to it then. Let's give a warm welcome to our Toastmaster, Louis Stenbaum.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Great to be here tonight. We have a theme for tonight. It's called Unforgettable Furry Companions. You ever notice on Facebook the ones that get the most likes are either babies or dogs or cats? Get the most likes. So tonight we're honoring our unforgettable furry companions. And the quote is, "Until one has loved an animal, a part of your soul remains unawakened." Anatole France there. Before we begin, we all carry these things around with us. Please turn it off as a courtesy to the people speaking tonight. Now I'd like to introduce some of the role players for tonight. Our president is also our timer tonight. Dennis, tell us about your role as a timer.
Thanks everybody. As timer, I will be making sure that somebody is keeping track of how long you guys are taking on your speeches. For a prepared speech, you will be getting 5 to 7 minutes. For the
8 to 10.
Sorry, 8 to 10 for this one. Okay, for this case, sorry, 8 to 10 for this prepared speech in particular. For our evaluations, we would like 2 to 3 minutes with a 30-second grace period after the 3rd minute. And for our table topics, we will have 1 to 2 minutes with a 30-second grace period after the 2nd minute. Hence, you can go up to 2:30.
You gonna do anything with lights?
For lights, most importantly, when you are at 1 minute for table topics, or minute 8 in the case of the prepared speech, or minute 2 for evaluators, I will be making this light green. When you are in the middle, 1:30 for table topics, 9 minutes for prepared speech, and 2:30 for our evaluators. It's going to go yellow, and then red alert. You got 30 seconds, and that's it. Otherwise you're out. Everybody clear on that? Good?
Yeah.
Good. Great.
All right. Emery, can I have clarification? The agenda says 9 minutes for Will's speech. Is it 10? Will?
8 to 10.
8 to 10. Okay. Okay, so timer, make a note of that. The yellow light comes on at 9. The red at 10. Okay, next is our grammarian, Hy-Vee.
Yeah.
Please tell us about your role tonight.
Good evening, everyone. As a grammarian, today I will track your language. I'm not the best of you. It's my second language. But I will look for your mistakes. And today I will introduce our tonight's word, lovely. I think it will be compatible with our team. So try to use it as much as you can, but don't repeat it. Thank you.
We look forward to your report at the end of the evening. Our R counter is Dan Craig.
My role as the odd counter is to track the filler words that you use inadvertently. We're trying to get rid of that bad habit. Filler words are things such as like, you know, so, but. We also count mouth noises like tongue clicks, Xeroxes, which are double dribbles, or false starts. I'm sure everybody will do their very best and turn in a lovely performance. I'll give a report at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for that lovely description of your role. At the end of the evening, we will have Jean Symington Craig be our general evaluator, and Art Atkinson will be our joke master. And now we get to the prepared speeches part of our evening. I'd like to introduce Emery Styron, who will read the objectives for Will Burns' speech.
Will is giving Project 4 tonight. His objectives are from the Competent Communicator Manual, fellow Toastmasters, guests, and viewers at home. His objectives will be to select the right words and sentence structure to communicate his ideas clearly, accurately, and vividly, to use rhetorical devices to enhance and emphasize ideas, and to eliminate jargon and unnecessary words, and to use correct grammar. He's asked for a little extra time, so he'll be speaking for 8 to 10 minutes. Has a lot to say. Now, are you fed up with the tired, unlovely political cliches being batted around in the news, on your Facebook feed, and in conversations with friends and family? Today, Will shall share a way of thinking about American foreign policy that transcends the left-right divide and the battle space between establishment and insurgent politicians. And while this system is simple to understand, once you grasp it, you will have a deeper understanding, that's a promise, of the forces shaping the foreign policy decisions of the United States. Speaking on 4 American paragons, please join me in warmly welcoming Will Burns.
The concept of 4 pillars of the use of American power in foreign policy was pioneered by Walter Russell Mead, noted professor of international relations at Bard College. Now, Mead introduced this concept in his book, Special Providence, American Foreign Policy and How It Changed the World. Mead asserted that there are 4 schools of thought about how U.S. foreign policy how U.S. power should be expressed overseas, each embodied by an American political leader. Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, Andrew Jackson, and Woodrow Wilson. Our first one is the first Secretary of the Treasury and founder of the U.S. Coast Guard, Alexander Hamilton. Now, Hamiltonians believe the U.S. should take up the mantle that Great Britain held before them, using the robust power of the U.S. Navy to guarantee the safe transit of goods worldwide. Hamiltonians are deeply supportive of supporting American industry and technological advantage for commercial and national interest. Hamiltonians like institutions that embrace commercial realism, like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. While it's a point of pride for Hamiltonians that while globalization and free trade have hurt the U.S. manufacturing sector, it's also uplifted millions of people out of poverty around the world and delivered unparalleled access to foreign goods for American consumers. Now, our second paragon is Thomas Jefferson, our third president. And like that noted man of letters, Jeffersonians embody the traditional ideals of this country. Jeffersonians love the U.S. Constitution, and they believe that we stray too far from it at our own peril. They're concerned about a strong central government, which they fear may push down the little guy, and decry domestic surveillance and surveillance of our allies abroad. They also take to heart Jefferson's warning about the dangers of entangling alliances, pulling the U.S. into entanglements and engagements overseas that we have no interest in. Our third paragon is Woodrow Wilson. Now, the Wilsonians also like building structure and order internationally. But unlike the Hamiltonians that embrace commercialism and capitalism, Wilsonians believe the U.S. foreign policy should be based on building democratic institutions and being human rights focused. Rather than the World Bank that Hamiltonians support, Wilsonians support the European Union and the United Nations. If you wanted to remake the U.S. system of government to something closer to the Star Trek ideal of the United Federation of Planets, that would be a Wilsonian desire. Finally, we come to our fourth paragon, that of Andrew Jackson, the first member of the Democratic Party to be elected to the presidency. Now, Jacksonians are often derided, but they have a huge impact in terms of whether U.S. foreign policy is decisive or muddled. This sprang from the early days of the Republic, from the peoples that settled in the Appalachian regions of the United States, and gradually moved west to tame the frontier. Jacksonians like the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights, but unlike Jeffersonians that love the freedom of speech, Jacksonians believe the right to keep and bear arms is the foundation of their freedoms. They like clear talk, and they despise elites and outsiders, even as they are loyal to their kin and take threats to themselves, their kin, and their honor very seriously. What's interesting is that many immigrants, despite being on the receiving end of Jacksonian xenophobia, many of their children ended up assimilating into the Jacksonian folk culture as time went on. Now, Jacksonians, funnily enough, are pretty disengaged with American foreign policy. They don't want to really be involved in foreign policy, except when they feel a threat to themselves, their honor, or the honor of the nation. The U.S. was not actively engaged in World War II until the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, sparking Jacksonian vengeance. which encouraged the U.S. to take a policy of total war, bombing cities, factories, dropping 2 atomic bombs on Japan, and preparing plans to invade the Japanese home islands, if required. However, when the war ended, Jacksonians wanted to go home and stay home. It took overstating the specter of worldwide communism spreading globally to incite Jacksonians to support stopping the Soviets during the Cold War, which they did. But the Soviet Union collapsed, and the Jacksonians again disengaged from foreign affairs, leaving Hamiltonians and Wilsonians to double down on spreading democracy, freedom, and capitalism to the world throughout the 90s. Then 9/11 happened. Once again, bringing Jacksonians into the fray. Many of them had never even thought of Afghanistan prior to 9/11. But the idea of going overseas to fight terrorism, rather than facing it on our own streets, yeah, I can get behind that. I think that's a good idea. When former President George W. Bush made the case that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and the U.S. should invade to keep them from going into the hands of terrorists. Well, sounds good to me. We better take care of that. We don't want terrorists getting their hands on biological, chemical, or nuclear weapons. However, the U.S. invades and realizes that the WMD threat had been overstated, and that what was originally a Jacksonian preemptive strike had morphed into a Wilsonian nation-building project. Fueling. Now, Jacksonians never forgave Bush for this sleight of hand, even though W did win a second term. And it did feed into their disillusionment with Washington elites of all stripes. Former President Barack Obama, Bush's successor, continued a policy of Hamiltonian, Wilsonian foreign policy, with cases like throwing Gaddafi out of, or overthrowing Gaddafi in Libya and greenlighting the Trans-Pacific Partnership. However, in 2016, there was a shift in the political winds. And though he did not win the popular vote, let's put that right out there right now, Donald Trump, capitalizing on elements of general dissatisfaction among key electoral states, was catapulted into the White House, or stumbled or something. It was a pretty close call, honestly. And now U.S. foreign policy is in a state of flux. When Hamiltonian commercial realism is tempered with Wilsonian idealism matched with Jeffersonian skepticism and Jacksonian concern for honor and security at home, then U.S. foreign policy is clear and decisive. But when policymakers put one group or several groups over others, unbalance the policy positions, then U.S. policy is indecisive and muddled at home and abroad. Thank you. I have a few minutes for questions. Any questions? Yes, sir.
So you're saying it takes all four, a mix of all four paragons to make good foreign policy?
Yes, I would argue that all four, without all four, historically they've enabled the U.S. to ascend to the place that it is today, with some stumbling, but that what often causes issues is when policymakers kind of misread sort of situations. For example, W lost a lot of support when he transitioned in this idea of compassionate conservatism and nation building overseas that really didn't sell with a lot of the people that got the whole terror angle. That was their thing. Conversely, you have somebody like Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was able to quite convincingly make the case to engage Jacksonian America and in the world. For example, just prior to World War II, with Lend-Lease. FDR went on, gave a fireside chat and said, you know, if your neighbor's house is on fire, you give them the fire hose, they put out the fire, and they give it back. You don't worry about the pricing, you don't worry about the numbers. You know, that's how it works. And that made sense to Jacksonians and gave them support to basically to pursue this policy. But when it's muddled, all bets are off. All right.
Aside from some of your mention of Donald Trump,
Yeah.
the most recent example of one of the four paragons that you mentioned is Woodrow Wilson. Can you tell us something about more recent administrations and the way in which they've
Done sort of a Wilsonian.
the way in which they've matched these paragons? Who's been an example of Jacksonian policy? Who's been an example of Jeffersonian policy, if anybody?
Sure. Well, these paragons kind of embody these different elements. So the question is, what modern political leaders embody these paragons or these policies? And I feel like the paragons are best used as an understanding of the general theme or philosophy. A lot of times it's a blended approach. For example, Obama used a heavily Wilsonian and Hamiltonian approach. He wanted to engage with the international community, but he also was very sort of human rights and building the U.S. brand through democracy, that theory. Conversely, somebody like Ron Paul or Rand Paul would be more of a Jeffersonian approach. They want disengagement from U.S. foreign policy. Hillary Clinton, mixture of Hamiltonian and Wilsonian. Bernie Sanders did not have one during his campaign, but recently he's kind of come out and he's kind of definitely been what I would say is a staunch Wilsonian. He's not a big fan at all of U.S. business overseas, and is actually not a big sort of, he wants to protect U.S. business, but really positive about freedom.
How do you describe Bill Clinton?
I think
Okay.
We're out of time.
I'm sorry, I'll get to you after the meeting. I'll talk to you about Bill.
Thank you, Will. Mr. Timer, please give us 2 minutes so we can all evaluate Will's speech. Mr. Timer, did our speaker qualify?
Before the question session, yes.
Okay.
After the question session.
Yeah.
The lighting
Depends.
was a
Yeah,
little
the lighting did not.
I just timed them on before the question session,
Okay.
because I figured that was the end of the speech itself. So that was on the yellow light, so that was good.
Okay.
Yep. And I
Was the question and answer session part of the speech?
I didn't include it as part, but
Was it supposed to be, Will?
I think in general, I would have included it. I kind of timed it such that it would be, but I went almost, so it was intended to be included in the speech.
Okay.
Not my intention.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
So we got a half-baked situation here.
Yeah.
I'm okay, you know what?
Yeah,
I don't,
it's fine.
if it is my eligibility for best speaker, I don't want to get an award for one speaker, so it has to be two speakers.
What would Wilson do?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is it.
Well, I was in the heckler role, so I dragged it out.
That's okay. I like heckling.
All right. So now it is time for our evaluation section of the program. I'd like to call up our general evaluator, Jean Symington Craig.
Thank you.
Well, that was quite an educational talk that we had, and very appropriate for current climate and historical as well. I enjoyed that talk. To evaluate our speaker, Will Burns, is his evaluator, Emery Styron. Please help me warmly welcome him.
Again, greetings, fellow Toastmasters and viewers at home. Our guests didn't hang around for the evaluation. Golly. I want to echo Jean. This was a extremely educational speech, and in fact, that's one of the best things I liked about it is, and what I like about Toastmasters in general is you learn every week, and maybe more this week than in many other weeks. So thank you, Will, for educating us. I'll go through the manual here and give my take on each of the criteria. Was the speech topic appropriate for this assignment? How to say it? Well, he picked a challenging topic, really, because if you read much analysis and media coverage of foreign policy and the language of diplomacy, it is very dense, multisyllabic,
Yeah.
and to put it into words easily said and understood is a challenge, and Will did that fairly well. Did he use short, simple words? For the most part, although his choice of this lens for looking at foreign policy, Hamiltonianism, Wilsonianism, it's there, and he worked through that very well. It did not drag down his speech. Did he use vivid, descriptive words that created mental images? Vivid, descriptive words. I don't know that there was a lot of imagery in there, except in a case or two. I did have a question. Speech title was Paragons, but you got up and immediately started talking about pillars, and that was a little confusing to me. I think it'd been better if you'd stuck with Paragons. Were the speaker's sentences short, simple, and understandable? Yes, in most cases. Did he use rhetorical devices? The one that stood out to me was the Star Trek ideal. Did he avoid jargon and unnecessary words? There would be a few what I would call cliches, like entangling alliances, but not a problem really. Proper grammar and punctuation, yes, I think that was excellent. Was the speech purpose clear? Yes, extremely clear. He was going to explain these 4 paragons of foreign policy and teach us to use them to analyze foreign policy, and he did that very well, and that organized his speech. So beautifully structured. What could he have done differently to make it more effective? I would suggest 4 or 5 visual aids. If you could show us a picture of each president and a key word like free trade with Hamilton, idealism with Jefferson, and so on, it would help us as an audience remember better what you had to say. What did I like? A valuable tool and delivered with passion, and it begged for questions and answers, and you gave that to us. So thank you, Will.
Thank you. Emery. Will, did that make you feel uplifted
I feel
and
pretty good, Jean.
you feel encouraged to come back up again for your next project?
I do, but I also have some good points to work on now.
Okay, good. That's an effective evaluation then. Very well done. All right, we're going to shift gears and we're going to do our impromptu speaking exercise. And this is going to be different muscle group. Everyone kind of stretch a little bit in your head because these use different muscles in prepared speaking. And to lead us in our table topics program, we're going to have Art Atkinson.
So fellow Toastmasters, tonight we are going to investigate the lovely topic of animals with whom we build relationships. Who's up for diving into this topic? Will's up for it, Emery's up for it, Dan's up for it.
We're all up for it.
Everybody is going to get a chance. I think we have the time. Will, you raise your hand first.
Frazier's still waiting, right? Frazier.
So Will, tonight's quote to illustrate the theme is, until one has loved an animal, a part of one's soul remains unawakened, from Anatole France. Do you agree with this idea or disagree? Tell us a little bit about your reaction to this thought.
I think it's a beautiful quote. And to many pet owners out there, I think it's very applicable. However, you could apply this quote to a lot of things. You could say that until you've learned to look at and appreciate great art, you really have not opened up your heart and lived life to its fullest. If you've never appreciated great cuisine, enjoyed an amazing meal, let's take a moment here, close our eyes, and just picture a really good meal or a good piece of art. But then again, I think back to my pets. I have a dog, I have a cat. And as we think about our own pets, I gotta say, it's pretty cool. I've had a long day at work, maybe it's been a good day, maybe I kicked some butt, maybe I didn't, maybe I'm just tired, and I open that door, and my dog is just, he's happy to see me, man. He's there for me, he's ready to go out, he's just like, hey, you're here, it's great. And I'm not gonna lie, that warms my heart in a way that my heart really has never been warmed. Having a creature there just so happy to see you every day. Every day I appear, he's so happy to see me. And my cat's pretty happy to tolerate me too. And I hope that each of you either has a beloved pet in your own life that can bring that warmth to you, that you appreciate a great work of art that inspires you and uplifts you, or that you have a really good dish this week that just causes you to transcend. Thank you very much.
Wow, well done. I'm going to take a moment here to do something that we'd like to recognize our brand new club member, Hadefa. We have for you a name badge. I'll be identified when you
Okay.
Art, do we have one of these? Do we have one of these for him?
and we have spare clear holders back there, and we'll
Yeah, okay.
arrange to have you place it on. I have others here. Louis, do you have a name badge?
I don't.
Would you like a name badge?
Sure.
Here we go.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Others, for those who are not present. Okay. The next volunteer was Emery Styron. Emery, recently you told us a story about a pet reptile, a lizard named Lizzie.
Good memory.
Is it possible to love a reptile, a lizard in particular, or is that a category of animal that's outside of the possibility?
Thank you. for the third time. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and viewers at home. Could I love a reptile? I think that would be a bridge too far. I don't even love my dog half the time. But I think I saw a movie recently that had a woman in it who had a snake draped all around her, and she loved that snake. And I have known other people who are very comfortable handling reptiles, in particular snakes, and so I'm not going to say that no one can love a reptile. Me personally, I can't. But I will mention that why I don't always love my dog. His name is Axel, and we've had a lot of kids in my house, and our sixth and final, we hope, one. When she began the drumbeat for a pet, we knew the drill. When I say we, I mean my wife and I. We knew who would take care of the pet, who would pick up its poop, who would feed it, who would pay for the vet care, and who would walk it, and who would go give it attention when it was barking. And our predictions turned out to be true. And so we take care of Axel. He's in dog years, around 14 or 15. So in human years, he's a centenarian, I think, by now. But he refuses to go on, so we keep taking care of him.
Wow, these are coming out great. Who'll be the next speaker? I think Dan had his hand up at one point. Dan, some animals can be tamed, some can be domesticated, and some can't. Of the animals that can you think of one? Tell us about one that occurs to you as being lovely or lovable.
Of the animals that can't or can?
The animals that are in the category of they're wild, can't be tamed, can't be domesticated. Give us an example of one that occurs for you as being lovely or lovable.
Mr. Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, viewers at home. The animal that immediately comes to mind for me as wild and can't be tamed is the Mustang. And I really can't think of anything so beautiful as a herd of Mustangs running across the prairie. There's just a poetry in their motion. So beautiful. There's also a great appeal to the fact that they are untamed. Of course, horses, as a rule, can easily be domesticated. That has been a relationship with men for centuries. But this subset of horses, the Mustangs, can't really be brought to bear like a domestic horse can. So just the beauty of them running across the prairie, wild and free, They apparently don't need anything from us, which is a little bit off-putting for us humans who are human-centric. But that's part of their appeal too. They have their own world and they're almost inexpressibly lovely in their existence.
Cowabunga, these are getting good. Dennis. Have you ever loved any animal? And if so, tell us about it. And if not, tell us why not.
I have a particular animal that I absolutely love and adore. Her name is Dixie, and she's a crazy mutt. We don't exactly know what breed she is. Possibly a Schnauzer, possibly this or that. But she's a dog. She's very much a dog. Or we call her a lovely wolf. She really has that pack sense of just kin and being strong with the family and just being very loyal, always happy to see us. When we take her to the park, she's a great playmate with all these other dogs. They're like a wolf pack. They're all together, hanging out. The social ones are liking all the wrestling with her. They enjoy themselves. And I really love how every time I come home, she's happy to see me. Every time Jamie comes home, even more happy to see her because Jamie brought her home. If it wasn't for Jamie, we probably wouldn't have. If it wasn't for my fiance Jamie, we probably wouldn't have got Dixie because I used to be completely anti-dog. So I love Dixie so much that she changed my mind from being an anti-dog person, where I thought dogs are cute and dogs are awesome, great guards, they're great shepherds, and they can do so many great things, but I don't want to live with one. Dixie changed my mind just because of how adorable she is, what a great family member she is, and all of the lovely aspects that a dog like Dixie can provide for us. Thank you.
Would you like another dog?
Fraser.
Go.
I'll evaluate you.
Or is it
Huh?
going up?
I'm evaluating.
Oh, he's the
Fraser
evaluator.
is.
Well,
Evaluate
all right.
you.
Okay. Yes, we got dog love.
Well, the question is a slam dunk.
Okay, so we're having a, okay, so you want, we'll get back in our roles now, you're gonna ask it to me.
I was going to ask her, are you a dog person or a cat person?
Well, I'll take it.
But
No.
there it is.
Is that it?
That's
Okay,
it.
okay, well, are you going to ask me, or are you asking me? Are you asking me that
Are you a
question?
dog person or a cat
Thank you,
person?
okay, good. Fellow Toastmasters and viewers at home, this is a very easy question. I am undoubtedly a dog person. When I grew up, we always had a cat, and the cat's name, regardless of which cat it was Kitty. We were not original with our names. It was just, here, Kitty, and you wanted to say, here, Kitty, and the cat would come. Cats usually were scratching. I had bite, or it would bite on me. Just not that great of an experience, I would say. However, dogs, so for example, when I met Dan, we started going out, and the first night that I came over to his house after a date, there's this dog that shows up at the door. It was Toby. And I thought, in my head, oh no, he's got a dog, like minus 5, 10 points on the dating scale. But Toby was such a gentleman, and just like Dennis said, Toby completely changed my mind. He behaved, he just was such a sweet dog. And when that dog died, he actually died in my arms. Suddenly, it's the worst grief I've ever felt in my life. Even my dad, it was deeper than that, because that dog loved us unconditionally, and I think that's where we get the attachment. At this point, I'm just going to say I'm a dog person. We have 2 dogs. They are, and I know I may get some pushback on this, the best dogs in the world. Dan, am I right? All right, Dan agrees too. So it's not just me saying this. Up close and personal, Dan knows it's the truth. They are lovely dogs. And as they get older, we continue to just build on that relationship. There's this mellowing out. And my heart, I know I'm not going to have them forever, but I will just say to them constantly, I love you. I love you, because I know I won't be able to say it forever. So I tell them I love them.
Wow. Hy-Vee.
Yes.
So far, we've heard all from Native North American. You come from Jordan. Is there any difference in the feeling about animals?
Not that.
So the question is, tell us how you grew up with the idea of loving pets and loving an animal. Tell us about that.
Okay.
And what kind of animals?
Yes. Okay. Fellow Toastmasters and our home viewers. I'm from Jordan, so the question is different, or the question, not the question, the answer is different. Since I moved here to United States, I noticed that people, they respect dogs and cats. But you may find squirrels or deers just in the side of the road or the highway. Usually squirrels inside the towns and deers outside. In our community, we have different perspective for all these things. Usually, I was grown in a farmer family. My father was a teacher, but we are from the community or the culture. So we had chicken, we had sheep, our neighbor had goats, another neighbor had cow, and cats, you can say, everywhere. We have, I think, 3rd or 4th generation of cats living in our home outside, but they have their job. As well as the people, they have dogs. These dogs have a job or something to do. Maybe you never think or thought about being a shepherd. Just take 50 sheep and go outside the town and just sit, and you can focus, you can just sing, you can play music or something, or you can think about your future. This is my experience about animals, not pets, because we do not consider as pets. But it's the culture perspective, it's not the people perspective. Because here I noticed that people, if they heard about in East Asia, they eat dogs, they feel, oh, sorry. But these people, they eat lamb and they eat goat, and so it's not about the animal, it's about which animal. So thank you.
Louis.
Is there any kind of animal that you could never love? Like it would be just either against your religion or just personally just objectionable?
Okay. Thank you. Fellow Toastmasters and viewers at home, the question is there any type of animal that I would find objectionable? Well, first of all, I'm a vegetarian. I've been a vegetarian since I'm 16 years old, so that's about 47 years. So all animals are objectionable for eating. Never eat an animal for the rest of my life. As far as pets, I've had a wide variety of pets ever since I was a young child. I actually did have a pet alligator that came in from Florida. It didn't last very long. And like Lizzie, I can't say I had a lot of love for it. It was more something that was of interest to me. Most of the pets I've had have had fur, so that you can pet them and feel good. I've had hamsters, gerbils, chinchillas. Chinchillas are the most incredible animals to pet. Their fur is so smooth. I've had cats and dogs. And I love them all. I love pets. Right now, it's a part that's missing in my life. I work outside of the home in town. I live in the country, and I don't make it home for lunch, so I feel it would not be appropriate to have a cat. Well, a cat, they can kind of take care of themselves, but a dog needs to be let out and taken care of. So in answer to the question, I would say animals that don't have some nice skin, some fur that I can pet is not an animal that I would like to have as a pet. Mr. Table Topics.
Is there anyone left in the room who hasn't
I
spoken?
think we should do Fraser, even if he doesn't.
Yeah, let's do
Fraser.
I saw that. That looks like. Fraser, you come from an island in the middle of the sea. So there's fish all around. And other sea animals. Have you ever had an aquarium or had any fish or sea animals as a pet or in an aquarium or in any way except eating them?
No. Hello, Toastmasters, viewers at home. In short, the answer is no. I never had any aquatic animals as pets. But of course, I did eat aquatic animals. Fish is pretty nice. The only pets we really had were, and we didn't really treat them as pets, were cats. And as would I've intimidated, they had their work to do. I mean, they would catch mouse. That's what and like Jean said, we didn't name them. or the only name we just call them pussy. So we say pussy, don't care. So they all had the same name. And generally, we didn't name animals. We had goats, sheep, cows, rabbits, but we didn't really consider them as pets and we didn't name them. So, in conclusion, as I said, yeah, aquatic animals, no, but we had some other pets, animals around.
I'll give myself my own table topic question.
Not if I give you one.
Yeah. No,
I'll give you
Art, you
Art.
gotta, yeah, just leave it to you.
Art, if you could create a pet that was a conglomerate of different animals, what would that pet look like?
So Louis Denbaum, another fellow Toastmasters and viewers at home. This is actually an easy question for me because I've thought about it in the past. I'm fascinated by the fact that some Russian researchers determined that foxes can be domesticated. And foxes are just gorgeous animals. I recently saw a young German Rottweiler, only about 5-6 months old, just a gorgeous animal, only about this long, probably weighs 30 pounds, but he had these soft, big paws. He's a German Rottweiler, not an American Rottweiler. He had very soft fur and these big paws that look like the kind of paws on a dog that's bred to walk in marshland. And the conglomerate that I would breed, had I the chance, would be a fox with big paws like that, no claws, big paws, soft, furry paws, and a glistening golden or red coat of fur. That would be an ideal pet in my mind. Madam General Evaluator.
Okay. Mr. Timer, could you please read the names of the people who qualified for the table topics section?
Yes. We have Will Burns, Emery Styron, Jean Craig, myself, Dennis, Jean Symington Craig, Kodaifa Shanawi, Louis Denbaum, Razor Jones, and Art Atkinson. Everybody qualified today. Okay. Congratulations.
Well, there you go.
Incredibly impressive group of answers.
Yes. This was like mini icebreakers all over the room. We all got to know each other a little bit better. All right, so let's do this. We can vote, but here's the rule on this one today. You cannot vote for yourself, just so we don't get hung up there.
It's going to be hard for you, Jean.
I know, it is. I always have trouble with the only once. Well, actually, we do have our table topics evaluator now, and because we have a plethora of speakers to evaluate, which is a lovely situation to be in, I must say, I'm going to ask us all to please warmly welcome up Fraser Jones. And how many people do you have to do? What would you like?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Okay, that's quite a handful. Can you do 4 to 5? 4 to 5?
Yeah, I think so. For me, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So there we go. Take it away. 4 to 5.
Usual time?
4 to 5.
4 to 5 minutes.
4 to 5.
4 to 5 minutes.
Green at 4, yellow 4.5, red at 5. Okay.
Okay.
Fellow Toastmasters, this was really a lovely set of table topics presentation tonight. So, Will, yeah, I like how you paused, think about the question, and then you sort of generalized it instead of just thinking about an animal, you generalize it to food and art. And then you segue back and went to talked about the animal. And in the end, that was nice that you segue and wrapped it up, dealing with the whether you had an animal or whether you had art or cuisine. I think that was very nice. One thing you didn't greet the audience. That would be good. Emery. You greeted the audience. And as you said, you could love our that, but other people could. And then you segue to your dog and say how you love that dog, or you.
Not so much.
Yeah, you didn't love the dog so much. Yeah. So, yeah, it was nice segueing and coming back with talking about something, your personal experience there. And then Dan. Yeah, this, you were talking about animals that were lovely, that can't be tamed, you thought, and you came up with the Mustang, and you went through, it was sort of poetic the way you went through it. You had great gestures, and yeah, and I like that phrase, poetry in motion, describing the movement. And I liked how you did your wrap up and conclusion, referring that everybody should have that kind of experience. Dennis, you were very enthusiastic. And had very good gestures and I like how you went through and say how you end up being changed from dog to anti-dog, from anti-dog to dog, because of this experience you had. And Jean, you greeted the audience. could have come out with probably a little more just as the scratchy, you know, so it was interesting because he said whether you would be a dog person or a cat person, and you end up being, well, he said the cat, and then at present, yeah, you were a dog person having 2 dogs, and your presentation was, to me, very sincere. It came across being very sincere. Hudaifa. Yeah, you greeted the audience, and yeah, it was nice to see like the difference in cultures, as you pointed out, how they look at animals as opposed to here in the US. And instead of, let's say, instead of petting, you could stay around, just being around the animals and almost in a meditative state. That seems, that difference was very striking, right? From the cultural perspective, yeah. And that came across very well. Good. Louis. You had very good movement and gestured. I mean, you made your point, then moved and made another point. That is very good. And the eye contact and gestures and yeah, and the fur, your movement, dealing with the fur, petting. Yeah, that came across very good. Art. Yeah, coming up with the combination of a pet that would like, and you'd say the foxes and the fox and the Rottweiler and the properties. That you seem pretty knowledgeable about that. As you said, you had think of it before, and that came across. Yes, so that we did. I would hand it over to Jean to.
That was quite a number of speakers to go through, and kudos to Fraser for hanging in there for all of that. It's really good. And of course, Fraser gets an evaluation too. Fraser had the question, fish for pets, or aquatic life for pets. A little tricky, Art. But you were coming up at the last, I know, you were pulling those questions together. Fraser did a nice segue. A segue is where you recognize from the outset that you can't really work with the question. So you acknowledge the question, and then you start to move it over to something that you can talk about. Fraser did a nice segue. No. The short answer is no, I've never had an aquatic pet. And then he switched it over, but let me talk to you about what our family did with animals. And he talked a bit about that and animals and cultures like that. My suggestion well, actually, another thing he did well was he concluded. That's always nice. So in conclusion or in summary, and he said, again, what he had said at the beginning. That was a nice wrap. I would suggest to Fraser, he had a nice juxtaposition he could have done in that conclusion. He could have said, so in conclusion, no, I didn't have any aquatic pets, but in actuality, we didn't have any pets. We did have animals, yes, but pets, no. Just to really emphasize what that was about. So very good. And so that was my one suggestion to Fraser, would be to wrap that up there. A little tighter on the conclusion. It's a tricky one. Fish are not high on my list of pets either. Okay, and besides those little gold ones, goldfish that you would get at the little fairs and then they would always die. Oh God, it's so terrible. Anyway, let's move on to our roles. Vote, that's right, for evaluator. Mr. Timer, nobody?
Nope. No
Nope.
evaluator qualified.
Okay, no qualifying evaluators, all right. Well, we had a lot. Fraser maybe needed
Yeah.
more time,
Yeah, I think you need more.
and Emery always has more than he can say in the time that's allotted. Right. Okay, well, of course, we always want to try to stay within our time, so thank you very much, Mr. Timer, for that. Now we're going to go on to the roles, and I am going to really be focusing myself on not doing up talk. I don't want to end my sentences going up. I want to go down, and I challenge you all to do that. It's an epidemic. First, our timer. Mr. Timer, would you please give us the times of the people that have spoken this evening?
First of all, our speaker, Will Burns, took 9 minutes and 43 seconds before questions for his speech. For table topics, Will Burns, 1 minute, 57 seconds. Emery Styron, 2 minutes, 8 seconds. Dan Craig, 1 minute, 42 seconds. Myself, 1 minute, 46 seconds. Jean Symington Craig, 2 minutes, 13 seconds. Khudaifa Shadnawi, 2 minutes, 28 seconds. Louis Denbaum, 1 minute, 48 seconds. Fraser Jones, 1 minute, 33 seconds. Art Atkinson, 1 minute, 47 seconds. For the evaluation section, we have Emery Styron at just over at 3 minutes and 35 seconds. Fraser Jones at 7 minutes and 14 seconds. And then your evaluation was somewhere around 2 minutes and 40 seconds if you want to talk about that.
I did all that for Fraser.
Yeah. Yeah. About 2:30, somewhere around there. Yeah. I actually lost track of the first minute, so I just added it.
So it's 3 minutes and something else?
No. It was, I counted 1 minute and 30 seconds here. I just
Well, you
added.
know, timing is a precise.
Yeah. I approximated.
He's over-engineering your time.
I approximated. I used the engineering approximation.
Okay, plus
Yeah.
or minus, all
Yeah,
right.
plus or minus
Okay.
one.
Not hiring you.
Large tolerance. to
All
the
right,
engineering.
engineers know what they can do on that.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Tyler.
Thank you.
All right, now we'd like to hear from our grammarian, Hudaifa.
I only tracked Will's speech for the evaluation or grammar guide evaluation. He had a very strong beginning with with 4 pillars analogy, and his language was very clear. Even I was not familiar with these names, but I was able to understand what he's talking about exactly, and I got his points. But the only thing regarding the whole speech is he needs to look from outside United States. Look from how the aliens see this vision. For the usage of lovely word, we have Lewis, 1 use, Emery, 1 use, Craig, 2 uses, Will, 2 uses, Art, 2 uses, Dennis, 3 uses, Jean, 2 uses, and Fraser, 1 use. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And then we have our counter, Dan Craig.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters. Here's the report. We did well tonight, in a sense. We extended ourselves. Lewis didn't. He was clear. But the rest of us went for it. Emory had, I believe, let's see, 12 uhs and 7 ahs and 1 anda. I heard 6 ands and 1 and, a Xerox and a false start. So excellent job. Will, I heard 1 you know, a tongue click, a couple of Xeroxes. I thought there were 5 false starts and 1 good long sigh. Jean had a so, a couple of ands, a Xerox, 3 all rights, and an okay. Art had a so. Dennis had 1 and. Hudaifa had an 2 ands, and a Xerox. Fraser had 5 uhs and 5 ahs, 3 ums. Your favorite filler word is yeah. I counted 8 of those. 2 so's. I heard 5 ands, 1 and 1 Xerox. That's my report.
Thank you. But Fraser has those, it has that timber and that, that Caribbean flavor, so it kind of works. No, not really. But thank you. That was a very precise and quantified odd counter. Now we are ready. Do we have a joke? Did I hear a rumor that we have a joke? Don't call Art a joke. That's not very nice. Oh, Art has a joke. Okay, here we go.
Statistics are that 1 in every 4 persons in the U.S. has got difficulty with mental health. So check 3 of your friends. If they're okay, you're it. Now in that connection, the other day I opened up an email and I was crestfallen because it said, by opening this email, you have activated the Amish computer virus. Scroll down. So with some trepidation, I scrolled down and it said, being that we Amish do not program computers, this virus operates on the honor system. Please close this email and then delete all of your files.
It's really funny. Okay, that was quite good. As general evaluator, just one comment I want to make ahead of time. If you have a speech that has some particular timing requirements, make sure you check with the timer and that the timer understands where you're going to be timed, or if you have sections. A lot of the projects, there are projects that have sections, and make sure that the timer knows what you want so that you're getting the right cues. Moving right along, Emory evaluated Will. I'm going to evaluate evaluators, Toastmasters, and viewers at home. Emory started out right with positive comments, education. It was very educational, and he used the manual objectives. He also gave a suggestion to Will about paragons in the title versus using pillars in the speech, mixing up the imagery a little bit there, and obviously to try to clean that up. A suggestion to Emory would be this would be something, if I were evaluating Will, I'd say that, but I think it's a pretty big thing, so I would just say to an evaluator, maybe something this could be added in a future evaluation. I didn't feel that Will had given a what's in it for me to the audience at the front. He launched into this historical part, and it wasn't clear to me exactly what, although it was very interesting, that I had buy-in enough at the beginning. Maybe it'll help me to understand what's going on now, and that would be enough of a buy-in, because, you know, geez, I mean, we're all trying to figure out what's going on right now, so that would be a buy-in. Secondly, I don't think I heard whether this was original thought on Will's part, in which case he could have said, as to set us up, you know, I've been thinking about these forces and this is an analysis that I've come up with, or whether it's attributable to someone else, a prominent political scientist or journalist in a political magazine or something like that. So I didn't know where the ideas were coming from. So that would be just a question to clarify at the outfront. And if Will's thinking to add credibility, he could say, well, when I got my doctorate in political science, this was what my dissertation was focused on, or whatever. So then I go, wow, okay, so he really knows what he's talking about. Well, he usually does, but that would add extra oomph to the whole thing. My other evaluator was Fraser, Table Topics evaluator, and my basic comment for Fraser, he had all these people. Fraser was really good at giving specific things that he liked about each talk. He remembered, he had written them down. The thing that I would say for Fraser to focus on for future evaluations in this area would be suggestions. He gave a suggestion to me that I should be showing the scratches on my arm. In fact, you know, I didn't want to show you. No, I'm just kidding. Those are not scratches. But so that was a suggestion. But I noted every time he put down a suggestion, and most of them didn't. Okay. Dan, he did give no suggestions. Let's see. You know, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I realized that.
So
I knew.
Yeah. So that's another part of the muscle.
Yeah.
The muscle is being able to go in and pick up specifics and also compare it to the standard and then give feedback on how it could be, some parts could be elevated to meet the standard. And that's the muscle workout. But otherwise, I thought it was nicely done, and it is a big job to have 8 people like that. Okay. There was something else I wanted to say, but I think we're done. We are need to be done. So thank you very much, and I'll welcome up our Toastmasters.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. So now it's time for our awards. Due to timing difficulties, we will acknowledge Will Burns as the best speaker tonight.
Right.
Will Burns. Good job. Good job. And after throwing out 45 votes for Jean, all in her own handwriting, the winner of the best table topics is Hy-Vee. Good job. Good job. How come we don't have a best table topics ribbon? Are we out?
I believe we're out. I think. Oh.
This is where you put it up at your work, so everybody goes by and Toastmasters, tell me about it. And then they go, come with me. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Now I would like to invite Dennis, our president, back up. Mr. President.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for your participation. Everybody took a part in table topics. Will, fantastic speech. It was very enjoyable, especially with everything going on in the news. It's just very exciting to talk about. Thinking about foreign policy philosophy is very applicable to every time in history we're living through. So, on terms of, that was my another filler word right there. Reminder, everybody. First of all, if you haven't already, I'm going to remind, and I'm going to keep reminding people. I'm going to be really annoying at every meeting. Be sure to get this filled out for those of you who are role players. That includes myself. And then we have a business meeting Saturday, but I'll talk about that only with our officers potentially in Coralville. So if anybody wants to go to that, it's about there's one area. It's a beautiful convention. It does cost money to get in, but then there's a business meeting I think at 1:30 in Coralville, Iowa, and that is one I will be attending. So if anybody, because it's free, so if anybody is interested in going, please let me know at the end of the meeting.
Please clarify what these meetings are.
It's a business meeting for District 19.
It's the conference, district
Yep.
conference, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, there's a conference with all the activities going on for those who want to pay. I think even on Friday there are activities, I believe. And then there's a business meeting itself, which is free. I think around 1:30 p.m. on Saturday.
How long is the meeting?
I don't think I saw a specific time if it's 1 or 2 hours. I should double check the email from Jenny or however you pronounce it.
Jean Heil.
Jean Heil. Okay.
Do you want my proxy?
Yeah, I can talk to you about that after. 'Cause I mean,
Just
I'll
email it to you.
Okay.
If they'll accept that,
Okay.
you can print it out. I'll have my signature on it.
Okay. Nice. It's official then.
Well, sometimes sometimes the corporate meetings anyway, if they don't have enough proxies, they can't officially do business. I don't know if that's an issue with this or not.
And you might want to find out too, when you have to be there. We'll close up the meeting, but when you have to be there so that you can register with the sergeant at arms and be counted, because I've made that mistake. They have to, like, there's a whole process so that you're eligible to vote.
Okay.
Don't just think you can vote.
Yeah, not show
Yeah,
the
you gotta
1:30
go through a
by
process and they check it off and like, so make sure.
Okay.
And they have a cutoff, like a time, like after this, you don't get it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll double check with Jean Heil about the sergeant of arms check-in because I was planning on showing up before 1:30,
To vote.
but gotta make sure I can vote too. Good point. Is there any other business from anybody else? Okay, nobody. Meeting adjourned. Fantastic job, everybody.
All right.
Great.